Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is a highly accomplished, classically trained actress who won our hearts playing the beloved character of Caroline Ingalls, better known as Ma, for 8 seasons on the NBC television series Little House on the Prairie. She also starred in feature films including Harry's War, Wyatt Earp, and My Greatest Teacher. On television, she starred in many memorable movies, including The President's Mistress, Battered, and Cocaine, One Man's Seduction. She's finally released her much anticipated memoir entitled Bright Lights, Prairie Dust, Reflections on Life, Loss, and Love from Little House's Ma. I'm delighted to welcome Karen Grassle to our show. Karen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Harvey. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I must tell you, Karen, that I loved your book. I read it in 2 days, and I found myself completely embroiled in your emotional journey as much as in your career. What took you so long to write this book?
Well, I'm not a writer, so I had a lot to learn, in order to convey what I wanted to convey. And what happened was that I was semi-retired and I moved up here to the San Francisco Bay Area. And so all of a sudden I found myself without my usual friends and my usual props. And boy, these memories just started coming. So I thought, well, I'm going to write these down. I'll save them at least for my son. And I had always liked writing. So I thought, it'll keep me off the street. So I started in, then I went to class, I studied memoir, I read lots of books, I joined a group. We've been writing together now for over 11 years. And we've supported each other and helped each other to make our work better. And this is the 3rd book coming out of this group. And when we started, none of us were writers. So I have to say, it's just taken that long. And then to find a publisher, that took a lot of time. I don't think that everyone was interested in my story because it didn't necessarily fit with the image they had of Ma.
Yeah, I get that. And we're going to explore that. I mean, in terms of your emotional development, there are 2 themes that permeate the book: drinking and mental health. I want to start first with the impact of having an alcoholic parent. In your case, it was your father. You wrote something very powerful, Karen. You said, and I'm quoting you here, "The worm of disappointment, hurt, and anger was quietly, privately eating at my core and at my ability to trust." That really says it all in terms of what kids in your situation go through, doesn't it?
I think it does. The damage from an alcoholic parent, even a loving parent, even a giving parent, if they're alcoholic, is insidious. And it's been a lot of work for me to recover from that.
Well, your father was clearly a complicated man and he took his own life. You wrote this about how you felt when he died. "It was too late for confrontations, too late for solutions, and what a relief, because the worst had happened. There was nothing to dread anymore." Karen, you have an uncanny way of capturing in very few words the profound feelings that we can all relate to.
Thank you, Harvey. My mother and my sister and I, of course, were in a state of shock afterward. But we went to my psychiatrist and we did some work together to remember the various things that had happened over the years and to help us talk about things we had never, ever talked about. And it brought us closer and it helped us to heal.
I can see that. Now, you wrote in the book about your own drinking problem. And if I understand the book correctly, you finally came to the realization that you had to stop. And you basically did stop cold turkey. Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah, I hit bottom. That's what they call it, And that's what happened to me. And fortunately, I had a very, very good long-term friend, my friend Tony, that I had known since I was 7 years old. And we had been through college together. We had been in London together. We had been high in the hills of Santa Barbara. You know, we had been through the mill together. And she knew me inside and out. So when she said to me, I think you're an alcoholic, I had to listen. And even then, I tried not to go to any program or any group because I didn't like that. And I tried to not drink on my own. And within 5 days, I was so drunk, so sobbing my guts out, repeating myself, getting angry over nothing. I mean, I was helpless, hopeless. And I turned myself in.
And you sure did. And what a difference your life made afterwards. I mean, your book is incredibly personal and very candid, and you share intimate details about your life. Karen, did you have any hesitation about opening up your life so freely to the public when nobody really knew this side of you?
I think that's one of the reasons it took so long, Harvey, for me to write it, was that I had to kind of let go in layers, you know. I could write of these very emotional things with my writing circle and private, but to put it in a book, to put it out into the world, I had to keep peeling away layers in order to reveal stuff that is risky, you know, chancy, and people might not like you.
Well, I found the opposite, actually. I always loved your work. I didn't know you, but I came to love you so much more. And I'm wondering, was there a therapeutic benefit to you in writing the book?
Absolutely. In fact, I think the whole experience, even if I never published, would have been a healing experience. And I encourage all those people out there, women, it seems in particular, who are keeping journals and who are writing and who are exploring their own lives, to keep at it, because it's been tremendously freeing for me.
I mentioned that there were two themes in the book in terms of your personal development. The first was alcoholism, and the second is mental health. There are words like depression, hysteria, mood swings sprinkled throughout the book. And there was even a suicide attempt. You wrote that as a young woman, you were out of touch with your feelings. Why, Karen?
Oh, I think that was the childhood, you know. You have to shut down somewhere. So if daddy's drunk, or if daddy's criticizing you, you have to turn off. And I had a very tight diaphragm that was shut down. And when I first went into therapy, I remember the doctor telling me a story and then saying, "What do you feel about that?" And I said, "Well, I think da 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 da." And he said, "I asked you what you felt." And I didn't know. So it's strange, isn't it, for an actress? Because it's all about feelings, and it's all about sharing those feelings. And that all my training and all my hard work, you know, was to get in touch with my feelings and to share them with the world. And I had a lot to overcome.
But you did it. You said in the book that as a young woman, the darkness descended when someone brought one of your flaws to your attention, and you realized that you weren't perfect. I'm actually surprised that you didn't become anorexic, because the emotion that you described is frequently experienced by people suffering from eating disorders.
Oh, is that right? Well, I'm very, very lucky that I've got this very healthy gut and a huge appetite, and have always eaten and been interested in all my meals and my snacks, you know. So I'm very, very fortunate that I didn't get hit with that. But I think all of these compulsive disorders, you know, however they hit you, whether it's gambling or spending or abusing your body, they have similar roots.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Karen, you were a young adult in the 60s. You lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Kennedy assassinations, the Civil Rights Movement, the pill, Bob Dylan's music, the Vietnam War, student protests. Do you think that the integrity that you learned during that time influenced your acting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I developed a very strong sense of social justice. Now, I had it anyway as a kid. I was very concerned with fairness, but my real sense of how the society operated and how certain people got left out was really developed during the 60s. And even though people, you know, make fun of the 60s now, and there were a lot of excesses, there was also a lot of education. Don't you think, Harvey?
I think there was a lot of education and there was a lot of development of ethics and principles and values.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you really exemplify that in your book. I love that part of your book. In my introduction, I described you as a classically trained actress. That's because you studied English and drama at Berkeley, and then you received a Fulbright fellowship to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, and you apprenticed at the Actors Workshop of San Francisco. I was amazed at how difficult and prolonged your struggle was in New York as a young actress, and that you kept pursuing your dream despite every setback. Did you ever think of giving up?
You know, when I finally did think of giving up, it was about a month or two before I got Little House.
Wow.
I had just run out of steam, you know. And in New York, I did have to get some serious therapy to help me keep going. Because, you know, as a sensitive person, you're opening yourself up, then you're getting rejected, then you're insecure about the rent, you know, and it's hard. I think a lot of people give up, and I don't blame them. But I so believe that this was my path and that I was supposed to do this, that I had this thing to offer, and that I could offer some truth of the human heart, and that it was worth it. And so, yeah, it kept me going until I almost gave up.
Well, you struggled for at least 5 years before landing a role on Broadway. Now, on the one hand, you wrote about a severe lack of confidence, but on the other hand, you must have had enormous ambition and drive to keep pursuing an acting career for that long. Do you think you probably had more confidence in yourself than you realized at the time?
Well, I got little hits of approval. So when I first got to New York, the first audition I went up on was a soap opera. I got the job like that. And then I went up on a play that was supposed to come to Broadway, and I got the job just like that. And I thought, well, so this isn't so tough. And then that play closed out of town, and I was out of work for, I think, 6 months. So, you know, I knew that I had the training and I knew that my talent was there, but I had no idea if it would work out. I don't know, Harvey, it amazes me myself that I could do it.
Well, I love what you wrote about the satisfaction of finally being famous when Little House on the Prairie really took off. You said, in my hometown, recognition was vindication for all those years of feeling unpopular, rejected by my peers, and misunderstood. It's really true that success is the best revenge, isn't it?
I certainly felt like that.
I do too. Now, what advice do you have for aspiring young actors besides, I know you made a big point in the book of saying, always read the script before accepting a job. And I got that, but that's a lesson you learned the hard way. But do you have any advice for aspiring young actors?
Absolutely. First, read the book, because there's a whole range of acting experience in it. Second, act everywhere you can, in the community theater, in your small local theater, in the rep company that is in your nearby town, in the student film that somebody's going to make. Go be in it. Just keep on acting. Read plays, read wonderful writers, get your sense of language built up. I remember when we were in college, we were sitting around smoking cigarettes and talking about, how you become great. And I remember Stacy Keach saying, listen to great music. It will help you with your timing. I think it's like exposing yourself to all the arts feeds you and gives you more to draw from, because you want to deepen yourself,
That's wonderful advice. Now, as we all know, you played the role of Ma on Little House on the Prairie for 8 seasons. She was a woman with great strength of character, integrity, kindness, and fortitude. I had the feeling you based your portrayal of Ma on your own mother because she seemed to have a very pure soul.
There wasn't very much about the real Carolyn Ingalls in the books. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of historical research about the family. So I drew from my mom, because my mom came from a real hard Scrabble background, and she had ridden a horse to school. She had known American Indians to talk to. She had taught in one-room schoolhouse, and she had pulled herself up from nothing, getting herself educated at San Jose State Teachers College, going to work within 3 years, just going after it. And she was totally dedicated to us as a mother. She was not a person who was all that sympathetic, because she was tough, But I basically thought of her as the spine, the strong spine.
They say you should never work with children or animals, but you did both. And you made it look easy and even enjoyable, was it?
Well, I do love children, so that helped a lot. There was a day when we had a big black bull. I don't even remember what the story was, but that black bull had to die in the show. So they brought the veterinarian in and they gave the bull a shot to put it to sleep. And the bull just stood there. And this went on, we would wait an hour and then give the bull another shot. They were like, I don't know if I can give him more. And we waited and waited for this bull just to lie down, And then, of course, with the kids, they went home at the end of the day. So off they went, and there we were, and it was time to get all of Ma's clothing. So often I would go back through every costume I'd had that day, every hairdo, every scene, with the script supervisor reading the kids' parts and play my part.
That's a lot.
It was hard.
Now, of course, you've been asked many times what you thought of Michael Landon. He was the star, a frequent director, writer, and executive producer of the show, and you said he was a workaholic. But you also described him as moody and not supportive of you when you wanted a raise. I was really shocked to learn that there was a great deal of tension between you because the two of you never let it show on TV for all those years. Karen, that's actually quite amazing.
You know, Harvey, that was before we had heard the words sexual harassment. And Michael never harassed me sexually. I am not saying that. There was none of that on the Little House set. But he did use my femininity against me when it came to my contract being improved. And I will never understand why that was such a big deal to him. He was such a wealthy man, you know. I will never understand it. But there were many times that I had to swallow my hurt feelings and beam up, you know.
But the chemistry between you on the screen never gave even a hint that you had that pain, that sense of betrayal, that anger. You're an incredibly gifted actress because you portrayed everything we wanted in that character, even though you really did not have a great time for a lot of it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I think of as professionalism.
It is professionalism. It's also a lot of talent and dedication and respect for your cast members and the show. It really is. I'm wondering whether you're ready for the reaction of the Michael Landon fans out there who are going to be very surprised by what you've written in the book.
They might be mad at me.
Are you ready?
I have to be.
Well, here's the thing, Karen. You knew him and we didn't. And I think that this is your story. It's your truth. And this helps us get to know you.
Yeah, this is my story. And I think I wanted my story to be known. I wanted people to know that it wasn't all sweetness and light. I don't know, Harvey, if you've seen some of the interviews with many of the people who worked on the show, but most people had a marvelous experience. Everything was so much fun. The people were all marvelous and everything went beautifully and the show ran like a clock, you know, and that was not my experience.
Well, I think that it's very brave of you to write the truth that you went through. I'll give an example to our viewers. You were offered the role of John Travolta's mother in Boy in the Plastic Bubble, but Michael Landon refused to let you do it. Why?
Who can say?
You never got an answer.
Was control. That was during the negotiations for my contract. He was not going to help me.
You wrote about some of the key episodes of Little House on the Prairie, like School Mom, where you filled in as a substitute teacher when Miss Beadle was injured, or A Matter of Faith, when you got an infection that almost killed you, and Olsen versus Olsen, which dealt with women's rights. Did you have a favorite episode? Those were some of mine.
Oh, thank you very much. Those were all favorites of mine for very different reasons. School Mom, because, you know, I got out of the kitchen and got to be, you know, more of an autonomous character. And then it was really fun to do the handyman because I got to flirt with that gorgeous guy, you know. So that was really fun. All the little girls liked him too, you know. Some people just have that chemistry. You
wrote that although you were happy to have the work and the financial security, Little House on the Prairie was never your dream job. Your soul was still in the theater. Did you ever regret staying on the show for 8 years?
There were times when I thought that my tenure there would end. And then the network would come with an amazing offer. And I would agree to stay 2 more years, you know. And the truth is that if you're on the air, that can really help you to get other projects going. And by that time, I was interested in writing and producing and trying to get stories on the air that were good for women, were good for social justice, you know, things like that.
Well, I think it's important to point out that your film and television career extends far beyond Little House on the Prairie. You starred in Battered, which was one of the first and most important films about domestic violence, and you co-wrote the script. You must be so proud of that film because I'm proud of you.
Thank you. We worked very hard and really hung in to get that made. And it's had a profound effect in this country. I'm very, very pleased about it.
I understand that Battered was used for police training in a number of states.
Yes, I had no idea before we did our research that the most dangerous job for a policeman at that time was to intervene in a domestic dispute, because often the partners would turn on the policeman. It was a very out of control situation. And so they needed new tools of how to handle that so that it didn't go bad. And I was thrilled that our little movie could help. Yeah.
Well, you've been a strong advocate for creating shelters for victims of domestic violence, and you were heavily involved in activism, supporting the Equal Rights Amendment. Are there other social causes that you're involved in these days?
Right now, the only social cause I'm involved in is getting this book out. But I think when the excitement of this is over, I think that energy is going to go into saving the planet. We're in such a state, aren't we?
I'm curious about something you mentioned in the book. You described a strange psychic phenomenon happening to you when you were in university. You would hear a song in your mind, and when you turned on the radio, it would be playing the precise phrase you had just heard in your head. I want to know, does that still happen?
No, I thank God. I had some strange things going on there for a while. And thankfully, they are not going on. I don't want to hear voices or anything like that.
Well, I have only one question left, Karen. When you first got to Hollywood, you watched Katharine Hepburn's interview by Dick Cavett, and you were deeply distressed to hear her say that you can't have it all. Now that you're at this stage of your life, I want to know, do you agree with her that you can't have it all?
You can't have it all at the same time. I know actresses who had families and kept working, or already had families when they got offered a series. And so what choice did they have? They had to do it all. But in my experience, this profession is so demanding that it is very difficult to give yourself to a family the way you would want to. And I heard Kate Mulgrew say, well, she did it by compartmentalizing herself, the way that we hear that men do. But for me, I wasn't able to have a family until after Little House was over.
But you don't have any regrets, do you?
Well, there's no point in pretending that your life is something other than it is. I mean, it's all part of it. Every disappointment is part of the journey. Every lesson learned, every mistake, every embarrassing failure, it's all part of the whole. So we can't be picking it apart.
But I get the feeling, both in reading the book and in speaking with you, which I have to tell you, I've really loved, you're at a good place in your life. There's a sense of serenity and contentment about you that really shines right now.
Thank you. And it's not fake. I'm at a very, very good place in my life and very, very grateful.
And you're ready for all of the media frenzy around the show, the book, your comments about how different you, Karen Grassle, are to the character of Ma. You're ready.
Let it come down.
Well, I must tell you, Karen, it's been a real pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much for opening up your life to us so beautifully in your book. I know you said you're not a writer. I would beg to differ.
Thank you, Harvey. It's really been an honor to have you spend the time you spent to understand the book and to really prepare this. I'm really, really grateful.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. I wish you the best of luck with the book. Thank you again for taking the time to appear on our show.
Thanks, Harvey. Take good care.
Our guest has been actress and author Karen Grassle. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Remember to subscribe to the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. And be sure to check out more great interviews with Harvey Brownstone on harveybrownstoneinterviews.com.